Welcome to forever, man. Let's go. Come on. This forever. No surrender. Yeah. You know that this right here forever. Go. And there will be no surrender. Now allow me to reintroduce myself.
You're now tuned in to the Dads Who Live podcast. I'm Joel Staley with my co-host Tyler Gaeta.
On this week's episode of the Dads Who Live podcast, we'll be talking to relationship coach Bryan Reeves about relationship issues for single and married fathers.
Forever. All the more times I've been severed, I'm raising the bar, you can go ahead and measure. Think about time for a toast. Time that we welcome to go. Yo, we're just leaving, I think about time that somebody go get them that coat. You know I got all that anthem, come back, ain't what you call that add on.
All right, Bryan. Well, welcome to the Dads Who Live podcast. I already did a nice little intro for you, but I guess I'll talk about how I came about to finding you first. And so basically, I'm at a point in my life where, I'm 30 years old. I've got a lot of good things going for me. I'm pretty much excelling in every area of my life except for my relationships. Everything else is working out great. Everything else is going great. I'm very blessed, but I just can't seem to nail down that right relationship. And so I got to the point to where I finally realized, I'm always doing self-reflection. I'm always thinking about personal growth and, listening to podcasts and reading books. And I'm very much so always trying to be the best person that I can be. So I got to this point to where I realized in the last relationship when I contacted you, when that ended, that it's not all them, And so previous to this point, it's easy to put the blame on other people, and I've definitely dated some crazy women, but I've had fault in everything. I've been toxic. I've had toxic people to me. I've been toxic to other people, just like anybody has, So I finally was able to step back and go, all right, it's not all just these women that are crazy. I have a part in this too, and I need to look into this, take a serious look into this and fix it if I ever want to get where I want to be, which is where I want to have a family. I want to have more children. I want to be married. And so, and that's where Joel's at, He's nice, married, you're married. And at first I was like, all right, do I hire a relationship coach? I guess at first I didn't even know that there were relationship coaches or life coaches that deal with relationships and stuff like that. And so, but Joel is always, and I've never hired a coach ever in my entire life. But Joel is very much so into hiring these coaches, and it just got me thinking one day. I was like, shit, I bet there's a relationship coach out there. And I was like, what's the difference? If I'm struggling in business, I hire a business coach. If Joel's struggling and getting his online, marketing going, he hires a marketing coach. If I'm struggling with relationships, why can't I hire a relationship coach? Just makes sense. So I went online and I Googled best relationship coaches in the nation, and you were the first guy. You were the first guy relationship coach on the list. And so I clicked on your website, really liked all the stuff that you had to say on your website. There was videos and links and testimonies and all this stuff. So I reached out, and you're a very busy man, so it took like a month just to get the first phone call. But once we got that first phone call, we decided to work together, and we have been ever since. So that's just kind of a nice intro of how this came about. The shit I'm paying thousands of dollars to get, we want you guys to have access to for free here on the podcast. Pick Bryan's mind. We're going to go live a little bit later in the podcast, just so that some of the guys can ask us questions and shit like that. So welcome, man. Thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thank you. I am genuinely honored to be here, man. I really appreciate it. Thank you both for inviting me on. Yeah. I just want to acknowledge, your story, Tyler. It's not unusual. Men, especially men, I work with women too, but especially men, they tend to come work with me under one of two scenarios. One is that everything is working, and yet they can't quite, they're still not happy. Like they're just still not, something's missing. And oftentimes that shows up in the relationship domain, that even if they're in a relationship, I mean, in your case, you're not in one, but even when men are in one, a lot of times, like, everything's working, but it's not working. Something's still missing. There's like, they're not quite happy or content or fulfilled. I mean, that's one scenario. The other scenario is when nothing's working. Like, they just don't know what the hell they're doing in life. They definitely, relationships are a mess, but so is their career. They just don't. So, we men tend to come to this kind of work at the extremes. If things are kind of cool and chill, like, all right, we're good, and it's oftentimes an intimate relationship or within that area that we tend to most notice something is off. So your story is not at all unusual, especially when it comes to men and this kind of work.
Bryan, do you work with mostly single guys, mostly married guys? Give us an overview of what your clientele looks like.
So I actually work with a lot of couples as well. So, one thing, Tyler, and I think you figured this out pretty quickly, is I am not a pickup artist coach. That is not what I do.
Which is good, because that's not my issue. I said that's good, because that's not where I have the issues.
Yeah, well, I think, pickup artists, maybe they know how to get the girl, but they have no idea what to do with her after they get her. And that's where relationship coaching really matters. And so I work with, so Joel, to answer your question specifically, I work with a lot of couples, but I work with also single men, and I also work with single women. And my focus is relationships, but it's not necessarily exclusively what I do. I do a lot of sort of general life coaching as well, but it is definitely, my focus is relationship, and that's what I'm mostly known for because of what I write about a lot in my blogs. And but yeah, I work with a lot of couples too. I've been working with couples since 2014, I think, was the first time, and man, I love this work. I gotta tell you guys, I'm a former Air Force captain. Electrical engineering was my background, military. To do this work today, what I do today, is such a privilege and an honor, because I feel like I really get to make a difference in people's lives and how the world relates to itself and to each other through intimate relationship work. Because this is where our shit just gets real and challenging. And again, like Tyler, like you've expressed, no matter how successful you are in every other domain in your life, this is the one area that nobody has taught us what the hell is going on, what we're supposed to do here.
That's the thing, man. Especially someone like me. I mean, I love my parents to death, but I did not grow up with healthy relationships around me. It just wasn't around. My parents were divorced. I'm not going to get into details and stuff like that, but I just wasn't growing up around healthy relationships, which I think a lot of people aren't, So yeah, I never really had that teacher of what actually is a healthy relationship. And it really wasn't even until I got into my 30s to where I even thought of fuck, maybe I don't know what a healthy relationship really even is, And I will say, when we've been doing our work, the sessions that we've had thus far, it's not about anybody else. I would assume that when you're actually coaching couples, it's probably more about the couple and both of the people. But for me, as somebody that's doing individual work, it's strictly individual work. Everything's about me. You'll sit there and say, hey, man, you do not project what they feel, because you don't know what they feel. You don't know where they're at. Everything that we do is all looking inside. Where are these thoughts coming from? Mindset shit. Where are these thoughts coming from? What are the feelings behind these thoughts? And how do we change these to positive thoughts so that these things don't continue to happen?
Very much so. It really is. And even when I'm working with couples, although you're right, you're absolutely right, there is more of a dynamic focus on each other in a couple dynamic. But at the same time, all of our relating to someone else is founded on how we relate to ourselves. And so in the relationship work that you and I are doing together, Tyler, I mean, the first focus is relationship to self. How are you relating to yourself? How are you talking to yourself? How are you, if you're off imagining and projecting into someone else's experience, what is she thinking about me? What is she up to? What is she doing? What does she think about me? What does she think about us? Whatever the stories that we carry about, whether we're dating or in a relationship, if we're so focused out there, nobody's home. Nobody's checking in on what's going on here. So it's like we can't even know what our real needs are if we're out there in fantasy land.
Right.
Just imagining, and it's like, so the first practice is really coming home to ourselves and checking in with ourselves. That's why, at the beginning of our sessions, one of the things we always do is to check in.
Yep.
And in fact, in all the men's work that I do, that's actually one of the first things, even I have a weekly men's group that I meet with here in LA. It's the first thing we do is we check in 30 seconds, the same thing. What am I feeling? What's going on in my body? Because, you ask most men, you ask them what they're feeling.
Horny.
What do they tell you? What's that?
I guessed horny.
Horny. Well, it's interesting. When men meet with men, we tend not to.
Yeah, I mean, whatever floats your boat, Joel.
It doesn't seem to come up a lot. If women or and even I have gay men in these groups, and it's funny, but no, what men usually tell you when you ask what are you feeling, men will tell you what they're thinking. Oh well, I'm pissed because my boss did this, or we're so disconnected from the neck down that, again, if we don't know what's going on in our own body and what we're feeling, what's happening in here, how the hell are we going to be present to what a partner is feeling and going through?
So how often do you recommend somebody do these check-ins, Bryan? Just once a day or sporadically throughout the day?
Well, it's a great question. I think when we're, I'll just share with you my own practice. So I'm like a lot of men. I forget to drink water sometimes because I'm so focused on my mission. I'm so busy doing whatever my work, whatever it is, whether I'm writing a blog, whether I'm coaching, whether I forget to drink water, and I'll forget to eat lunch. And my body's telling me, I can feel it right now that I'm actually thirsty, and I have water right here next to me, because again, I will override what's happening in my own body for the sake of the mission, and then we bring this into our intimate relationships again. We override what is happening we could even say the body of the relationship, the emotional content, the feeling content of the relationship. A lot of it's fascinating how many men I have worked with and been close to and even had my own experience with, where we thought everything was great in the relationship. We're cool, everything's good, and then all of a sudden, boom, the bombshell is either, our partner, she is, I say she, it could be, I'm heterosexual, so I speak in heterosexual terms. I just want to honor if there are any people listening who aren't. That's fine. That's good. Take what fits, leave the rest. But they drop a bombshell that I don't feel connected to you, and I haven't felt connected in a while, or I'm leaving because this isn't working for me. And we're like, I don't know what you're talking about. What happened? Well, just take, again, me not even really paying attention to how thirsty I am right now. If I'm constantly ignoring my body's signals throughout the day, I am going to ignore the signals in my relationship as well, right? So, so Joel, what does it look like? For me, it looks like when I sit down in the morning, I wake up in the morning and I meditate every day, anywhere from 10 to 30 minutes. And while I'm meditating, I'm also checking in with my body. What's happening? Wow, a lot of soreness in my neck. I'm noticing a lot of pain in my neck. That tells me, okay, don't skip your yoga practice this morning. Because if you do, that pain's going to get worse, for example, right? And again, as I go through my day, I'm as an entrepreneur, I make my own schedule largely, except when I'm meeting with clients. So there's a lot of things I could be doing. Sometimes what my body really wants to do is just take a damn nap. I can feel my face might be really fatigued or tired. I can sort of, if I'm checking in with my body and noticing, wow, again, that mission mindset would have me just, no, you have work to do. You have emails to answer. You have blogs to write. You have a video to edit. You have whatever. But sometimes the most urgent thing that I could possibly do is just take a nap. And I can only know that, though, if I'm checking in with what's happening in my body, consistently throughout the day. Does that make sense?
100%. I know we got a lot of questions we want to bounce off you, but before we do, can you just tell us a little bit about how you got into the relationship coaching?
Yeah, definitely. So, as I said, I was in the U.S. Air Force for 10 years, 5 years college training, ROTC in college, and then 5 years active duty. And through that experience, especially as an engineer, I really, just growing up a boy in our culture, I really learned to disconnect from my feelings, from my body. So coming out of the military at 26 years old, I couldn't feel anything. And from that place, I tried to do intimate relationship with women, and it was a fucking disaster over and over and over again. And I had great intentions, never want to hurt anybody.
Sounds familiar.
And yet it just seemed like woman after woman was just angry and pissed and resentful. And I had no idea what the hell was happening. And so, 36 years old, and I'm kind of just my last relationship, the most important relationship of my life until that moment, when it had 5 years of just, exquisite nightmare imploded, and I'm just like reeling, I don't, kind of like Tyler, what you kind of expressed. It's like, all right, I don't know what's going on here. Clearly I am something. Clearly there's some secrets to this shit that shouldn't be secrets. And so I just started throwing myself into learning about that. And actually somebody put a book in my hand when I was 36 at this time. And that book is called The Way of the Superior Man by David Data. That book totally changed what I understood about intimacy, about relationships until that point. And see, here's the crazy thing. I have 3 sisters and 2 mothers. And they're not married to each other. They're married to my dad and my stepdad. But I was surrounded by women growing up, and so I thought, I know women. I'm so comfortable around women. I know what women want. I know how to love a woman. But what I didn't realize is that actually, like you said also, Tyler, the models that I had for intimacy in my 2-parent relationships, they were not helpful, let's just say. And so, turns out, I actually had no idea what a woman wanted from me in intimacy. I had no idea. I thought she wanted from me what I wanted from her. And it turns out that
they're different things. I said they're different things. What you want isn't what a feminine's going to want, especially if you're masculine.
That's right. I mean, intimate relationship is the play of masculine and feminine intimacy, whether in heterosexual or even same-sex relationships. We do intimacy to exchange to do this masculine and feminine dance, which doesn't mean man and woman. It just this is the duality of the human experience, masculine and feminine. You call it yin yang, whatever you want to call it. But I didn't know this until I turned. Until I was 36, and someone put that book in my hand, and all of a sudden, a whole light bulbs just started popping. And as I started to explore this over the next few years, and see, at the time, Joel, I was actually managing music artists. I had a lot of management experience and consulting experience, and as a professional, and so. coaching sort of was a long evolution of turning like a lot of management experience from the military, from industry, from private business, and then artist management. And as I was just blogging and writing about everything that I was waking up to, and well, people started finding my blogs, and I had some blogs go viral a number of years ago about relationships and what I was waking up to and learning, and people just started saying, "Hey, will you help me?" And I said, "Sure, absolutely." And it just evolved into a coaching practice, helping people with relationships. And you know, as I shared with you earlier, I love doing this work because I feel like, you know, this is where the evolution of humanity happens, and just how, you know, two people relate to each other. And yeah, I love my parents. I have 4 amazing parents, but the model of relationship they gave me, and even if they're listening, I'll just say it was shit.
Yeah.
I don't want what any of my parents had. I love them all. They're amazing, but they did not give me a good model for intimacy.
All right, so I want to get into my experience. Well, I've got a lot of experience, but recent experience. So I had the relationship that I had with a great woman right before I actually contacted you. And that was one that I actually fucked up. You know, I can be man enough and say that I fucked it up. Things were going great. I got overreacted over some stupid shit, got jealous over some stupid shit that I shouldn't have, but I know a lot of guys do that, and it's just real. And it ended it. So it is what it is. And then I ended up getting... it just so happened that like recently, right after I had an ex contact me, and basically ended up talking to her, and it was very short-lived. It was only like a month long. Just went on a few dates, but we had dated in the past, and so it was like, you know, that terminology came around of like exclusive, you know, being exclusive. We're going to be exclusive. You know, we're not putting a title on this yet, but we're going to be exclusive so that we can give this relationship the attention that it needs and see where it goes, you know? And so then towards the end, like the last week, some things were going sideways, and I could feel it. Some things were going sideways. And come to find out, I actually get a text from like another friend the next day that knows this dude that's dating her. And I'm like, what the fuck? So yeah, she was dating another dude the whole time, and I don't know the full story. You know, I basically at that point in time it was cut off, and it's been cut off, and it'll stay cut off. But to me, it seems like, you know, it's one of them deals of like maybe they split up for a weekend. She got with me, got back with him, and then just didn't cut me off. You know, which sucks. But I know people that it's happened to, and I've heard of it happening many times. So. All that I can go into, though, is like what I learned from it. And again, you can't always just put the blame on them, right? I mean, there's things that I learned from it, and like you said, you were like, you know, she's your teacher, man, you know, and there's a lot of good things that have come out of it too, no matter how much it sucks and how much it hurts, because I did care about this woman. I dated her in the past, and I had hopes that like, oh shit, you know, we're more mature now this time, maybe it'll work. But it was like, it's like you say, man, and it's weird to think about, but it's like people mirror you. You know, the universe is always going to bring you what you need. The universe is always going to bring you your lesson to teach you and get you in the next path. So I feel like I did need to go through it to continue getting me ready for the next one, if that makes any sense at all. And it's weird because,
yeah,
you know, you say that the universe mirrors you, right, and gives you what you want. Man, I lost my train of thought. We're gonna have to cut on that. But why don't you just hop in and start talking about it?
Well, I mean, I can pick up because you know, I actually. So I do my relationship coaching work on a foundation of radical responsibility. In other words, I don't ever, the work I do, we never put blame on the other person. Even when I'm working with couples, it's a co-conspiracy. Whatever that relationship is up to, whatever it's creating, it's a co-conspiracy of two people bringing all of their stuff to the table. And but one thing that I always find when I work with people that are going through breakups, when we really start to kind of dive into what happened. And I don't necessarily mean the details of why they're breaking up, but when we start to look at the relationship, what I find is that people generally, I remember working with a woman once. She was going through a breakup with a man who she'd been with about 2.5 years. And this was an Ivy League trained lawyer that I was working with, a very, very successful woman. She was going with a breakup with a man who was actually he was a religious leader even in her community. So a very upstanding man, there was a lot that, sort of on paper, this was like the ideal guy. And I remember, as we were looking at this, I asked her a question: when did you first feel like something was off? When did you first notice? She said, Bryan, on the very first date.
Yep.
On the very first date, I felt something. There was a conversation we had, and he said something that it just hit me in a way that I knew something was off. And then, but she played it out. She had to play that out for 2.5 years until it was just a complete wreck and complete disaster. And what I find, Tyler, is that, and this is why, again, checking in with our body is so important and so useful and so helpful. I mean, you said in your description, you said I could feel something was off. Even before you had the evidence, you felt like things were kind of going sideways. And look, relationships bring up all kinds of feelings, and they don't just feel good all the time. And if you're feeling bad, it doesn't mean it's the wrong relationship. But what it does mean is that in a healthy partnership, if this partnership is healthy, when one or either of you are feeling bad, there's a turning towards each other to sort of help each other through it. When it's not a healthy relationship and one of you is feeling bad, there's a turning away from each other and sort of just leaving you in whatever you're experiencing, or there's all kinds of ways we might sort of leave our partner. Again, whether you're dating for a few weeks or you're married for 20 years, still kind of the same. You're turning towards each other to help to sort of support each other and be supportive and kind and considerate, or you're turning away from each other and like, hey, that's your shit, I'm not touching it, don't leave me alone, I got my own. And healthy relationships, you're turning towards each other. And what you were experiencing, Tyler, was you were with a woman who was not able to really turn towards you and work with you in this. And look, because you've shared this, I only share this because you've shared this, that you play your part in this as well. There were ways you didn't make it easy for her to turn towards you because of the projections that you were putting onto her, for example. And this is what we do to people. It's like relationships are such a fascinating thing. It's like we want to be close with someone, but at the same time, we do a lot of things that get in the way of them actually fulfilling on the closeness we're asking for. There's a lot of pushing away, even as we're pulling to close. That happens,
and that's one of the
and long-term relationships.
Yeah, and one of the biggest things I did learn from that is to trust my gut. But it also gets. All right, so I've got very good intuition, and usually when something's wrong, I can usually always tell, so I should follow that. But then just like anybody else, I have insecurities too, and everybody has insecurities. If you say you don't have insecurities, you're full of shit. Some might have more than the other, but everybody has some sort of insecurity. And so insecurities can also play a role and make you feel things as well. So then it's like, when do you follow that gut? When is it just your mind, giving you a bunch of bullshit? Yeah, and then another thing too is like, I'm big into manifesting. We've had podcasts on manifesting. I sit there and manifest my life. I try to manifest my life every day. I do meditations, manifesting every morning. And I'm very good at bringing money into my life. I'm very good at bringing business things, success, material objects into my life. And we've talked about it, how that comes down to a mindset. Like basically it's scarcity mindset. You know, if I sit there and feel like, man, I suck at relationships and relationships are going to be hard and relationships are always hard, or these girls always cheat on me or nothing ever works out, then that's what's going to happen, right? If I sit there and say, I am love, I'm free flowing, relationships flow easy, relationships come easy, then that's what's going to happen. So it's interesting to me. And it's also crazy to think about that, like, and you even said it, you said you are manifesting your own insecurities into your relationships. And so, like, for me being a single guy, and I've been in some serious relationships, I've been single for periods of time, whatever it may be. But it's easy, and I've said this a million times to you, it's easy for me to be single. Like, it's easier for me just to be single. Like, we're in a hookup culture. Like, you get all these dating apps that you can swipe on people, you can find attractive females very easily. It's almost easier to hook up nowadays than it is to actually, like, go in a relationship and go on a date and have a stimulating conversation, which is pretty fucking alarming. But so it's easier to just date and hook up or do whatever you want and have fun, and these things don't come out. But whenever I get into a relationship, or at least a relationship that I actually care about the person, then you have all these things that are in the shadows in your mind that you had just pushed away and you hadn't really dealt with, and they come up in the form of thoughts, which is what I'm finding out, you know. So there's like this little thing that in my head that as a kid I was brought up to believe this, you know. So then it comes out in a thought in my relationship once I actually care, and that'll manifest into the relationship. How do you change that, man? How do you get to a point to where you're manifesting good things into your relationship and bringing the actual true partner? I mean, is it as easy as be who you want to receive? I mean, you hear that all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, you said earlier, I try to manifest my day. Well, you are.
I do manifest my day.
You're constantly manifesting our thoughts, basically, and whether our thoughts
good or bad
are of abundance. If we're focused on abundance, we're going to experience abundance in whatever form that arrives. If we're focused on stress and tension, we're going to manifest stress and tension. You know, I remember in a relationship that I was in, the one that really brought me to my knees. I remember seeing this phenomenon play out so clearly. And a lot of times it's easier to see it outside of ourselves first before we can see it inside ourselves. But I remember seeing this woman was so afraid. She had been cheated on by her ex-husband, and she was so afraid that I would cheat on her, that she would act, or she was just afraid I would want to be with another woman. And I knew in my heart I was crazy about this woman. I didn't want to be with anybody else. But she would act in ways that were so like, out of that anxiety, out of that fear, she would just do and say things that, quite frankly, made me want to be with another woman. But I didn't have the skills. I didn't know what the hell was happening. I just knew this is horrible. I mean, I'm crazy about her, but I can't possibly be in the presence of this for very long. Another woman started to look really good in the face of this woman who was so anxious, because here's what happened, though. This was my part. I was so afraid of being controlled, of losing myself, you know, and in her fear of being left, she would try to control me and try to tell me what to do, try to, you know, manipulate me all these different ways. And so my fear of being controlled would kick in, and I would do like none of it. I would rebel and resist and do the opposite, which just further made her want to control me even more. It was a vicious, nasty cycle. And this is what happens. I mean, so we both, that's the crazy thing. We were both manifesting what we were focusing on. Me, the fear of control. I don't want to be controlled. I don't want to be controlled. So here I am manifesting a woman who's controlling the hell out of me. And she didn't want to be left. So here she is manifesting a man. Can't wait to get the hell away from her. So, you know, you'll notice, Tyler, in the first few weeks that we worked together, remember the first week we worked together, and I want to, you know, honor your confidentiality. You share what you want to share. But the first week that we worked together, all we did was focus on mindset.
Yeah.
That's all we did.
Yep.
All we did was focus on mindset. Do you want to share a little bit about that I know it wasn't easy for you, if I may say. It was kind of scary.
Well, so yeah, I mean, like I said, being single or just dating in this hookup society is easy. You don't have to worry about your shit, you know? It's like I can focus on being successful, or, you know, I can dive into my work and I can still go have fun and get whatever I want. But whenever you actually sit there and you think of these thoughts coming up into your own mind, and then you digest them and say, where the fuck are they really coming from? Like, all right, so there's this thought. What's the real thought behind that thought? You know, like, I'm getting rejected. You know, that's a thought that would come up in my mind. Rejection. I don't like rejection. So what's the true, like, fear behind that? And it comes down to, like, I mean, there's a bunch of fears, but, like, I'm not good enough. It's insecurities of, like, I don't deserve this, you know, things like that. So whenever you can break that shit down and dissect it, you pull it out of the dark, right? It comes out of the shadows into light. And then, you know, what we do is then we do the opposite. Then we write down, all right, what's the you know, the opposite of I am rejected, you know, and you write that down. Then you write down, what does that make me feel, you know, and you write that shit down. How would I act? You know, I'd be calm, I'd be confident, you know, things like that. And it's not like, I'm a very confident guy. I never have a problem getting dates. Like, I don't have problems talking to women. I'm very confident in business. In my everyday activities, I'm a very confident person. But there's just certain areas in my life, and I think everybody's like this. There's times where people will get insecurities or into their own minds or into their own weaknesses, and then things come out. And when you don't change them, that's when they're just going to continue to happen and have the same exact pattern repeat itself. And I've seen it in... look, that recent relationship where the girl was dating another dude, that is not the first time that's happened to me, you know? And so it's like, when you have the same patterns happening over and over and over, you got to look at it and say, all right, you know, what the fuck is going on here? What do I need to do to change my side? You know, but I will say too, though, I believe everything happens for a reason. And, you know, up to your blog that you just put up, that email that you just put out the other day about timing, about how, you know, you really believe that it's all just about timing. And we're not talking about, like, you're in the same gas station or restaurant as her at 5:34 and 35 seconds on this day, you know, whatever. We're talking about you're ready. Like, the universe is always going to bring you opportunities and bring you things that you want. But if you're not ready, it's basically going to bring you things that you need to, it's going to push you towards being ready. So until I'm ready, even though I feel like I'm ready, until I'm actually ready, I'm just going to keep getting shit that's going to push me towards being ready. If that means that I'm cheated on, then that it is what it is, you know? And I also feel like this is for people that are like, this is for people that want healthy relationships. This is for people that want that happily ever after, the shit that people talk about but nobody really has. Like, if you want to just be in a codependent relationship, you can find a codependent partner, and if that's what works for you the rest of your life, like, go for it. If you want to be single and just you know, hook up with people the rest of your life, go for it, you know? But the shit that I'm talking about, the inner work that I'm talking about, I truly believe that you have to get to the place inside yourself that you're ready, because it takes a lot of work, right? And so you got to get to this place that you're ready, and that's the timing deal before it's ever going to happen. So does it suck what I just went through? Absolutely. You know, did it hurt? Absolutely. But am I growing from it? Abso-fucking-lutely. You know, is it forever? Hell no. You know, there's going to be more. I know it's out there and it's coming, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, all the teachers, all the wisdom teachers. I think you got Bruce Lee on your poster behind you there, right?
Yep.
Bruce Lee.
Yep. And there's Ali in here too.
You know, it teaches us to flow, to be like water. And you know, he doesn't teach us, you know, you need to find someone else who will treat you good, and then everything will be okay. He's like, no, you need to learn how to flow like water. It's an inner game. You know, all our teachers teach us it's an inner game first, man. Everything manifests from what's on the inside. Doesn't mean people don't do shitty things. You know, I'm not one of those guys that sort of those, you know, new age dudes who you know, blames you for giving yourself cancer. You know, I'm not one of those guys. But or blames you because your partner cheated on you. It's your fault. You manifested this. Nah, man.
We will.
But but it is a co-creation in relationship. But we, like you said, we will continue our patterns until we change the program.
Until we're ready to break the patterns.
Hey, Bryan, I got one for you, man. And this is just because last night I posted in the Dads Who Live Facebook group, if you could go back 10 years and give yourself one piece of advice, what would it be? And, a large chunk of the guys, whether joking, half joking, or serious, said, I'd tell myself, don't get married. So my question is, at what point in an unhappy marriage do you figure out, all right, is this not working because lack of communication, or is this just not working because it's not the right partner? And what are some practical steps you can do to either nurture the relationship or just get the hell out of it?
That's a great question. One of the things that I always encourage people to do when they're considering ending a relationship, get support. Get outside of the two of you and get a third, professional opinion, if you will. I mean, you wouldn't operate on yourself by yourself. You wouldn't try to, cure your own cancer without going outside of yourself and getting some other expert opinions. It's the same for your relationship. If you feel like your relationship has cancer, well, don't just euthanize it or stay in it and hope it gets better. Go get help, get support, get someone outside of you to help you make sense of what's going on, because it could be that your time together is over. That's entirely possible. I don't think that all relationships are supposed to stay together forever, not by a long shot. But it also could be that there's an opportunity for the biggest breakthrough of your life. So, get support. That's number one. And I think, just to comment on the fact that I want men to hear this, because I'm 45 years old. I've been doing an intimate relationship myself a long time. I'm only with my current partner less than 5 years. But here's the thing. Relationship, I call it, especially for men or for more masculine-oriented people, relationship is a kind of no man's land. It is a place where, I'll never forget, in the movie Wonder Woman, there was this perfect moment in the movie Wonder Woman where, and you see this theme plays out a lot in movies. Wonder Woman, there was this scene where Wonder Woman they're on their mission. All the men are on a mission to save the world, basically, which is what it feels like to be a guy. We're always trying to save the fucking world, whatever that means. Affect 1 billion people, make $1 million, whatever. Say something, do something, have some massive impact. And relationship gets in the way of that, at least in our minds. And it's like a distraction. And here's this scene where Wonder Woman is they're at the front lines, and she's saying, guys, no, there's this village over here across the front that needs our help. And all the men are telling her, no, that's not the way. If we go that way, we'll die. That's no man's land out there. I don't think they use the word no man's land. Maybe they do, but they're like, we can't go that way. We have to go this way. This way over here is how we're going to save the world. And she's like, no. She makes a stand. She says, no, this is where we go. We're going to help this old woman who's hurting and her village right over there. This is our mission. And then they see Wonder Woman run out into the front lines where she should have her head blown off, but she's surviving. And then she rallies all the men, and all the men are like, okay, I guess we need to follow her. Damn that woman. She's crazy. That crazy bitch. It's kind of what guys are thinking. What the hell is she thinking? What is she doing? She's going to get us all killed. This is kind of what guys feel like in intimate relationships. She's going to get us all fucking killed. Why are we doing what she wants us to do? This is not the way. That is the universal kind of masculine experience of intimacy. And yet, as it plays out in the movie, what happens? That happens to be the way in which they all save the fucking world together. It works. She does know. It's come, connect with the people, serve in the moment, be present with what is right now. And that's what they do. They follow her across no man's land, and they end up saving the day. And it's, yeah. This is how relationship occurs for so many men. It occurs as a place where we lose freedom. That's the great masculine value of freedom. Intimacy, relationship, by its definition, bonding with another person, having to consider another person's sensitivities, its desires, that by its nature is compromising to our own personal expression of freedom. There's just no way around that. The movie Mission Impossible, that maybe, maybe more of a cliche male movie, but so maybe more guys can relate to this. But in the movies Mission Impossible, Tom Cruise in the latest installment, or one of the last two anyway, it's explicitly stated that he cannot be married if he's going to save the world. Like, that's the choice he faces. I can either save the world, literally save the world from destruction, or have a wife. And it's spoken, like he chooses not to have a wife, because if he has a wife, he won't be able to save the world. Like, it's this so primally, it's fascinating. We see this everywhere. And so I just want guys to hear, you're not alone in this. Like, this is just how relationship occurs for so many of us. It's normal, it's natural. It doesn't mean you shouldn't be in the relationship. What it does mean is that you're choosing a path, and you are choosing it, because you don't have to stay, but you're choosing a path in which you are being invited to get out of your fucking head and drop more into your heart. And that is a journey that many of us men, especially many women too, but that is not for the timid of heart, and that is a journey that many of us resist.
And let's be real too, most people in a relationship in general will just push it off on their partner. Oh, my wife's such a bitch, or my wife did that, or my wife does this, and they never actually look at what they're doing or their part in the relationship. What comes into that,
That's right.
That whole checking in with your body, leading with your heart, not your mind. Your mind will tell stories. Your heart will never tell stories. If a feeling changes, that's your mind fucking with it. All right, guys, this ends part 1 of the Bryan Reeves Relationship Podcast. Tune back in next week as we will be dropping part 2. There's a lot more juicy info to go over. Don't miss it. Listen, there's no way to be the best version of yourself if you're not raising the bar.
Raising the bar isn't just about doing the things you're supposed to be doing. It's about doing those things that no one expects you to do and doing them perfectly.
Thanks for listening, guys. If you love this podcast and you are a dad who lifts, check out our Facebook group, Dads Who Lifts, and join. You can also catch this podcast on SoundCloud, YouTube, www.dadswholifapparel.com. We also have a Dads Who Lift Apparel Facebook page.
Anthems and bands with masters, getting them right like my name was Miranda. I ain't bigger dead than alive, I ain't bigger dead than alive. One more time, this is forever, remember the legend, he never gon' die, yeah. I ain't bigger dead than alive.